Happy Easter! I'm Vine and this is a video list of almost all Easter eggs in Stellaris. Almost because I'm ignoring all text-only references, specifically name lists, including planet names and messages. Because otherwise this video would be twice as long and thrice more hellish to edit. You still get most of the achievements though. The video is also divided into genre segments, as multiple edits share their sources, with some artificial categories created for companies and our objective reality. With this out of the way, let's do this. The first segment is Paradox, as the devs quite like self-references to game history or their other works. And honestly, we love them too. As we have here the Blorg, created during the pre-release stream by former Stellaris game director Wiz. Despite being fanatic xenophiles, Blorg are also very ugly and lonely creatures that are willing to fight you for your friendship. This behavior captured the hearts of many fans and established the subversive sense of humor of our community that holds strong to this day. Thanks to that, we have now preset Empire that can spawn in the galaxy with custom AI personality and a Blorg paragon Mercedes Romero, who was a scientist exploring space during the streams. Not to mention a myriad of in-game and out-game graphics heavily featuring the species. And since we are on streams and preset empires, Chinor's Stellar Union is a reference to the Paradox Studios stream producer Knorr, supposedly as a thank you note. Next is collectivism and individualism, which are mentioned in one of the anomaly events describing primitive civilization that destroyed itself after an ideological schism over the definitions of morality, of collectivism and individualism. This is a reference to Ethics Before 1.5 patch, where instead of authoritarian and egalitarian ethics, we had in-game individualist and collectivist ones. But due to flame wars on forums debating their morality, they ended up being replaced, which is a shame as authoritarian and egalitarian ethics are not that flexible for roleplay purposes. Another self-referential event is the comet sighted that appears sometimes in the early game. It's a recurring event in all Paradox games, particularly in Europa Universalis series, so it also found itself in Stellaris. Chirpy Avian Species is a reference to another Paradox game, Cities Skylines, where it's a logo of social media being also an obvious inspiration from old Twitter. Another game featured in the eggs is Crusader Kings, as the achievement Deus Vult is a reference to it instead of real history. And during the Dimension of Suffering event, we can recreate Gate to Hell event from CK if we have the Feudal Society Civic. Moreover, planet Earth, if not being a homeworld of any starting empire, can spawn in the era referencing one of the couple Paradox 4X games, with pre-FTL societies having corresponding ethics. The late medieval age being of course Crusader Kings, and the machine age being Hearts of Iron. The last self-referential egg in this segment is appropriately avian. The Skrand Shabik, whose portrait is an allusion to the Krasura race from Age of Wonders. Next are Warhammer 40k Easter eggs. But before we start, I must inform you that Warhammer is cheating with them a little, as since it started as a pastiche franchise, it actually gobbles up a lot of references that are shared with other franchises. So be informed that not all those eggs are 40k exclusive. Let's start with symbolism only. 13 Human Flag is a reference to the Crux Terminatus badge. Barbaric Despoiler Civic is a Chaos Star. The name Despoilers also comes from Abaddon the Despoiler. Fanatic Purifier's Civic share deep similarities with the badge of Deathwatch, which also relentlessly purges Xenos. Deathwatch's motto also comes up in Suffer Not the Alien achievement. From other references to Space Marines, we have Gene Seed Purification and Gene Warrior armies, that are respectively tech to produce Space Marines in Stellaris and Space Marines that do not violate copyright. As for the Empire at large, we have the Imperial Cult Civic that represents the state religion of the Imperium of Man. Moreover, we have also the Imperial Crusade resolution in the galactic community that is a reference to all the Imperial crusading in 40k. And Exterminatus achievement is something that Imperial Inquisition likes to do occasionally. Ascension Pact Flesh is Weak is also a battle cry of Iron Hand Space Marines, and Cybernetic Creed Origin with the Capet Toxoid portrait is a reference to Cult Mechanicus of Mars. And Stud and Construction Templates is something that this cult also relentlessly searches for. As for the 40k Xenos, Living Metal is a reference to the Necrodermis, the substance that the Necrons' bodies and their constructs are made from. Devouring Swarm Civic and the Praetorian Scourge Crisis are an egg of Tyrannids. Psy-Jump Drives are technology that references Warhammer's warp travel. And since we are on the warp, the whole shroud is a one big reference to it, with the classical 4 entities being counterparts of Chaos Gods. Composer of Strands is similar to Nurgle, Eater of Worlds to Korn, Instrument of Desire to Slanesh, and Whispers in the Void to Zinj. It's a good thing that in the shadows of the shroud they were mixed up with other entities and their personalities shifted to distinct them more from their inspirations, as this egg was too direct. Anyway, the end of the cycle entity and the reckoning it brings is a reference to the fall of the Eldar in 40k. And finally, the Great Game Tradition is a catchphrase to describe the constant fight for influence between chaos powers. Now we can move to another franchise, which is Star Trek, another big influence on the game. So big that Paradox even made a spin-off of Stellaris in the DC universe. Imagine the drama if 40k boys would get something like that. Anyway, back to this basket of eggs. From the Empire creation screen we have 2 humanoid portraits. Pointy-eared humanoid species being a reference to the race of Vulcans, and the second humanoid species being a reference to Klingons. Moreover, the second domination flag is a reference to the Terran Empire, and the 14th human flag is an egg of the Human Federation of Planets. Then, in-game, we have a Broken Union event that gives brain slugs, which is a reference to the Trill symbionts. From traditions, To Boldly Go in Discovery 3 is an egg of Star Trek opening monologue. And from civics we have Driven Assimilator, which references Borg, despite the fact that it's a terrible way to roleplay them. Nonetheless, we need this civic for an achievement distinctiveness added that is yet another reference to the Borg. From achievements we also have an emissary, which is a reference to Deep Space Nine. Particularly the wormhole picture is the egg here, as it looks almost the same as the one in the show. Lastly, the extra-dimensional invaders crisis is a reference to Davidians, which is an energy species that preyed upon humans for their neural energy. Okay, next is another science fantasy franchise, Star Wars, since the political drama of the prequel trilogy was very in line with Stellaris gameplay. So we got heavy references to the Republic and Galactic Imperium with the Galactic Community and Galactic Imperium respectively. Establishing the Imperium even gives us achievement with Thunderous Applause, which is a reference to the scene from Revenge of the Sith and also Darth Sidious' fashion choice. From other achievements, Directive 67 is a reference to Order 66, and stay on target alludes to blowing up the first Death Star in New Hope. From in-game features, we have clone armies being an egg of the clones from the prequel trilogy, Duracell materials referencing the alloy from Star Wars lore that is used for constructing ships and armor, and Mega Shipyard, which is inspired by the Star Forge from the RPG Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. This is why we must build this mega structure around stars. Now you know. Finally, the fifth reptilian species is similar to Kovakian monkey lizards. Time for the Mass Effect segment, as the 2010 space opera definitely matches the Stellaris vibe. Personally, I think that Xenophile Ethics itself is a reference to Commander Shepard, but I have no proof. Actual eggs are quite impactful though, as the contingency, one of the most difficult endgame crises to fight against, are just Stellaris' version of the Reaper cycle. Another one is Zro, as in name and color it references element 0 and biotics, though this egg is shared with Dune due to its mechanics being very similar to spice. Speed Demon event, on the other hand, is a cheeky reference to the highly criticized ending of Mass Effect 3 with color picking. From other events we also have the Glancing Hit, which is a reference to Mass Effect 2 dialogue about Isaac Newton and dangers of kinetic weapons missing their target and traveling as long as required until they hit something. And the fifth molluscoid species is in essence a Yag. Next is the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the favorite book of the devs, since there are a lot of pure naming Easter eggs from it in the game. But since I cover mainly game features here, one of the game events called Honeymooners leads to the discovery of the Alien Travel Guide, which is the Stellaris version of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Another egg is the Towel Bearer Leader trait that gives plus 42% survey speed. Towel, according to the guide, being a very important item to have in space travels, and the number 32 being the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. Moreover, when we use World Cracker on the planet Sol 3, sometimes called Earth, there is a 50% chance of creating a wormhole in the system leading to another newly created wormhole, something that also happens in the novels. And lastly, we have the Prickety. They are a reference to the cricket species from the third novel, which fails to exterminate all other life in the galaxy and gets sealed away. Now, the Babylon 5 references. Show that I never watched, but the devs definitely did, since we have a pretty significant game features that came from there. I'm talking about fallen empires which apparently were inspired by the Vorlons and the Shadows from the show. The War in Haven, named after a biblical event from the Book of Revelation and not after 40k equivalent, is also a reference to the Second Shadow War from there. The achievement Last Best Hope also refers to a line repeatedly said in the show. The scenario of the player empire joining League of Non-Aligned Worlds and beating warring fallen empires is very close to the events of the Babylon 5. Not sorry for the spoiler if it's considered one. Also, the Interstellar Assembly megastructure is a reference to the Babylon project, and the Psi Core tradition with the corresponding building reference an organization of the same name from the show. Lastly, we have the Creatures of the Void anthropoid species, which is very similar to the Shadows from Babylon 5. The segment is about Dune and all Easter eggs that were not eaten by Warhammer or other franchises before, since all sci-fi and some fantasy franchises reference this book series a lot. In the case of Stellaris, those references are Selected Lineages Tech, which is a reference to noble lineages selected and bred over millennia by Bene Gesserit Order, which are also referenced themselves with the Teachers of the Shroud and their specific choice of attire. Another Dune-inspired feature is the Tank-bound Civic, which references spicing guild navigators that had to live in spice tanks due to their mutated bodies and addiction to the substance. Moreover, the edict Sight Beyond Sight is in essence a usage of the road to space navigation, the same as spice in the books. And finally, the plasteel materials tech was first introduced in Dune. Yes, I know it's also in 40k, but I count this one towards Frank Herbert and his franchise. Time for the Doom segment, and here I'm cheating a little as in essence it's only one feature. The doorway is an old event chain with multiple eggs inside, but the main reference here is Doom, as the Porter Research Area Planet feature that this event spawns is a reference to this game series. It has multiple routes and possibilities, so much that I think devs should make it appear multiple times in one game, with Mirror Dimension being a reference to both Star Trek series and Stellaris 1.0. But the Dimension of Suffering is literally Hell, Dark Realm, Jekad from the Doom. We can close it in a couple of fancy ways. I've already mentioned the feudal one, but with the Knights of the Toxic God Origin, this egg goes further as we have an option to send our best knight in. Guess who will that be? He or she, as in Stellaris Knight may be a Doom Girl, can return victorious as Doomslayer, giving us the trophies of the Doomslayer Empire modifier. Doomguy may also stay there, going full rip and tear mode, forcing demons, because science forbid we call obvious demons by their proper name, to ask for refuge in the real space. The Knight can also return with unholy armies, spawning a demonic incursion empire that we can switch to play with. Seriously, this event should be set to spawn on Mars by default. The next segment is also kinda cheaty, because it includes Marvel IPs as a whole. Mutation choices during Biomorphosis Ascension have various references to the X-Men series. Defender of the Galaxy is an egg of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and Achievement with Great Power obviously references the famous quote, "With great power comes great responsibility" from Spider-Man. Another complex event chain with a series of references is about the novel Moby-Dick. Defeating the Tiyanki matriarch triggers an event where renowned paragon Reth Andol can join our empire with his battleship named AH-4B, which is a reference to Captain Ahab from the novel. This also grants us a Hump Like a Snow Hill achievement that is a description of the whale from the novel. And the trait Hell's Heart that Reth has references the main plot of Captain Ahab's obsession with Moby-Dick. The Greek mythology segment has only achievements. Our fleets will blot out the stars references the legendary boast of a Persian messengers at the Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BC, as reported by the Greek historian Herodotus that our arrows will blow out the sun. Pandora's World obviously references the mythological unboxing failure, and Hope also references the same myth, but specifically the hope that stayed in the box. I also have a segment where I grouped 3 references to the overall fantasy genre that need to be mentioned. 6 of humanoid species pack portraits reference typical fantasy races, specifically halflings, dwarves, goblins, demons, orcs, and cyclopses. Entropy Drinker's Civic is in essence the curse of vampirism, with the image being very informative about it. Meanwhile, the Reanimator's Civic is classic necromancy that appears in almost any fantasy universe. The almost last segment of Easter eggs are singles and doubles that I couldn't group with anything. So, fasten your seatbelts and prepare yourself for a speed read. 3, 2, 1. Maximally Effective Achievement is a reference to the fictional book 70 Maxims of Maximally Effective Mercenaries from the Schlock's Mercenary Space Opera webcomic series. Oppressive Autocracy Civic is a reference to the 1984 novel by George Orwell. Building Better Worlds Achievement is a reference to the Weyland Yutani Company motto, and Xenoform Armies are a reference to Xenomorphs, both from the Alien franchise. An enigmatic cache ship is a reference to the novel Rendezvous with Rama, and Eddic Monolithic Event is a reference to the novel 2001 A Space Odyssey, both by Arthur C. Clarke. The Rogue Agent event is a reference to the James Cameron's Avatar movie. Burn Notice Achievement is a reference to the USA spy drama Burn Notice. Like Tears in the Rain Achievement and Never Forget Archaeology Site are both references to the monologue from Blade Runner. Break On Through and To the Other Side achievements are references to the Break On Through to the Other Side song by The Doors. Brave New World achievement is a reference to Aldous Huxley's Brave New World novel. Clash of the Titans achievement is a reference to the Clash of the Titans movie, specifically the good version from 1981. 1999 AD achievement is a possible reference to the Chrono Trigger JRPG. Then Virgil Now Beatrice achievement is a reference to the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. Voidkampf achievement is a reference to Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, novel by Philip K. Dick. Strange Mood achievement is a reference to the Dwarf Fortress game. Strategic Coordination Center Megastructure is a reference to the Ender's Game novel by Orson Scott Card. Horizon Signal event is a reference to the Event Horizon movie. Outside Context achievement is a reference to the Extension novel by Ian Banks. From Bad to Worse achievement references This Is Fine page from Gunshow comic. Underground Vault planetary feature is a reference to the Fallout game series. Old Factory Study event and Despicable Neutrals placeholder AI personality are references to the show Futurama. The 22nd round flag and the gun pointed at the head of the universe event are references to the Halo game series. Whatever It Is I'm Against It achievement is a reference to a song I'm Against It from the movie Horse Feathers. Riders of the Lost Galatron achievement is a reference to the film Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. The Infinity Sphere and Gargantua are reference to the film Interstellar. Positronic AI technology is a reference to Isaac Asimov's Robot series. Crystalline Entities are unbreakable. Special Project is a reference to Part 4 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure manga Diamond is Unbreakable. Judgment Core Tradition is a reference to Judge Dredd comics. Clever Gill achievement is a reference to Jurassic Park. Machine Supremacy is a reference to Swedish band Machine Supremacy. Marine Karin event is a reference to Marine Karin move from the Megami Tensei media franchise, specifically its usage in Persona 3 game. Grid Amalgamation Slavery Type is a reference to Matrix movie series. The Miniature Galaxy Relic is a reference to the first Men in Black movie. Megacorp's Concert is a reference to the Metalocalypse animated series. Domo Arigato achievement is a reference to Mr. Roboto song by Styx. Nerf Stapled Trait is a reference to the Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri game. The Nimkip event is a reference to the Pikmin game. Planet of Mechs achievement is a reference to the Planet of Apes series. There is a Zombie on My Lawn achievement is a reference to the Plants vs Zombies game. This is the Part Where We Kill You achievement is a reference to Portal 2. Purple Rain is a reference to the Purple Rain song by Prince. Ringworld Megastructure is a reference to the novel Ringworld by Larry Niven. Experimental Sentencing Civic is a reference to the SCP Foundation collaborative writing project. A Species of Ice and Ice event and Hear Me Roar are references to the Song of Ice and Fire novel series by George R.R. Martin. Battle Trolls Slavery Type is a reference to the Star Control game series. Fox Mammalian Species is a reference to the Star Fox game series. Citizen Service Civic is a reference to the Starship Troopers novel by Robert Heinlein. Power Overwhelming Achievement is a reference to the cheat code from the StarCraft series. L-Cluster Nanites are referencing replicators from Stargate Atlantis. Determined Exterminator Civic and the Rise of the Machine achievement are references to the Terminator series. Tinker Tyler Soldier Blorg achievement is a reference to the Tinker Tyler Soldier spy novel by John le Carré. The Gas Giant Structure Archaeology Site is a reference to the Titanic movie. Fourth Humanoid Species is a reference to the Fifth Element movie. The Tree Event is a reference to the Fountain movie. The Shard Dragon and the Rubricator Relic are reference to the Hobbit novel by J.R.R. Tolkien. The Prince event is a reference to the political treatise The Prince by Niccolò Machiavelli. Past expiration date achievement and localized Aurora Borealis specimen are references to the Simpsons animated series. Faster, Stronger, Better achievement is a reference to the $6 Million Man TV series. Payback achievement is a reference to V television series. Strength through Unity Coalition Authoritarian Faction is a reference to the V for Vendetta comic. Third Litoid Flag is a reference to the Ogre Kingdoms from Warhammer Fantasy. Boswash Metropolitan Axis Planetary Fissure is a reference to the Neuromancer novel by William Gibson. Winged Mammalian Species is a reference to the Wizard of Oz movie. The Anti-Alien Task Force event is a reference to the XCOM game series. Morphogenic Field Mastery Technology is a reference to the Zero Escape video game series. And that's almost it, as the last segment encompasses all Easter eggs that are barely eggs, as they reference real life, which, in the most part, is just narrative base for the whole game. Let's start with the Sol system and its neighborhood, as this is just our Sun with planet Earth as Sol 3, and Alpha Centauri, with Sirius being the closest stars to us in real life. They are also mapped according to astronomical observations. While we are at it, Deneb, Omicron Persei, Trappist and Zeta Reticuli also are inspired by real stars. Though not all versions are real, as the Helios version of the Sol system is a reference to geocentrism, a historical theory that placed Earth in the center of the universe. The Improbable Ceramics event is a reference to Russell's teapot, a philosophical analogy about the burden of proof. In Stellaris, this event has a chance of proving that a higher dimension exists, and some being from there was trying to communicate with the player's empire, which is quite ironic since the original analogy is a popular argument against the concept of God. Never Surrender tradition is a reference to Winston Churchill's speech "We shall fight on the beaches" from the 4th June 1940. Modern Cincinnatus is another historical reference to Lucius Quintilius Cincinnatus, a general in the Roman Republic who was twice granted dictatorial powers by the Roman Senate to respond to a crisis and twice relinquished it as soon as the crisis had passed. Based. Obsessional Directive Civic is a reference to Nick Bostrom's concept of paperclip maximizer, in which an industrial AI destroys the world to maximize the production of paperclips. The legendary Paragon Grey and a Grey Tempest mid-game crisis, on the other hand, are a reference to the concept of Grey Goo, a hypothetical global catastrophic scenario involving molecular nanotechnology in which out-of-control self-replicating machines consume all biomass to build more of themselves. Sic Semper Tyrannis achievement means "thus always to tyrants." This quote is attributed to Brutus, who killed Caesar, and was shouted by John Wilkes Booth upon killing Abraham Lincoln. Two of the aquatic and toxoid flags are reference to the Rorschach inkblot tests. The mid-game Crisis Khan event is a reference to the rise of Genghis Khan and Mongol conquests across Asia and Europe. Sublight Exploration Probes event and Golden Phonograph Record Specimen are references to the two Voyager deep space probes, from which the first one carries a golden-plated audiovisual disc with a record of a compilation meant to showcase the diversity of life and culture on Earth, in event that spacecraft is ever found by any extraterrestrial discoverer. Byzantine Bureaucracy Civic is a reference to the real administrative system of the Byzantine Empire, where the tradition of ceremonial titles and vague responsibilities was used to create a complicated web of control and influence, though this is more of a popular idiom than an egg. The Tree of Life origin refers to a fundamental archetype in many of the mythological, religious and philosophical traditions, as humanity likes having important trees in their cosmologies. Uranium glassware specimen is a reference to IRL uranium glass, which glows in radioactive green color under UV light. The chambered clay pot specimen is just a flush toilet with a misleading description stating that it was used to store food, which is an obvious reference to a most common archaeologist error, a hypothesis built on false assumptions. And that is all the Easter eggs I have prepared for you today. I know it's not all. If I have missed your favorite, write it in the comments for all to see. As for now, happy Easter and see you later!